Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the voice of all combat sports, the legend Teddy Atlas. Teddy, how you doing?
Good. I'm good. The most important thing, first of all, thank you. I think most everyone out there knows I don't look at the internet or know how necessarily how to do it. I don't think I've ever actually purposely gone on the internet to look for something because I wouldn't even know how to unless somebody puts it on in front of me or takes a snapshot, which I understand that verbiage, and sends it to me. But somebody did exactly that. Sent me a snapshot of some of the internet conversation and, remarks and all that stuff. I just want to say thanks to the good people that were asking about my grandkids. They're good. Everyone's good, thank God. Once you do have a seizure as an infant from fever, brought on by fever, you do have to be aware whenever there's a fever that, God forbid, it could cause another one. But I think the doctor said that for the first 5 years, you have to be aware of that. But it's not something that is going to be, they're going to outgrow it. They outgrow it. It's not something that's going to be forever. And again, thank God it was something that was not worse than it could have been. And the only reason why, I know I saw one response. People are so good. And there's some mean people out there, too. Like one person said the parents, can you imagine, Ken? The parents should have recognized that she had a fever. Well, you know what? It was 100 degrees out. And when it's 100 degrees... Can I just tell you before... When the weather...
You can't even... If you walked on water, they'd say you can't swim. People are such assholes. I don't understand.
But when the weather's 100 degrees... It's kind of hard to differentiate with an infant if they're clammy from the weather or if you should actually be taking their temperature, to be quite honest. And she had gotten an ear infection, which nobody knew. It had just come on. So it was at that early stage where she wasn't letting you know by crying or anything like that. So, it was one of those things that it's very... very hard to...
Even the implication that didn't the parents... Yeah, the parents are neglecting their kid. They don't care. They're not paying attention. You're right. You got us. It's such a stupid comment that I can't imagine you have enough free time to be an asshole to random people on the internet that you don't know. I don't understand this. I don't understand that personality type, that you're going to waste your time making a negative, crappy comment to try to hurt someone else's feelings, which is what you're trying to do. I don't understand how that would even make you feel better. But I digress.
Yeah, but listen, I don't want to concentrate on that. I want to concentrate on what I just said. Thank you to the many, many, really a lot of people that were praying that they were okay. And my other two grandchildren, they wound up being sick. I went to the doctor 2 days later with all of them. And I went there myself personally too. And they all got, looked at. They wound up catching whatever the baby had, whatever she had. The other two wound up catching it and had fever for a couple of days. So we went to the doctor, and the doctor, we were giving them, of course, liquid Tylenol. My daughter was, not me. Matter of fact, they came over here, and my grandson slept with me. He had fever that day. It was as high as 103. So during the night, he was sleeping with me. My daughter, who had a trial the next day, show you the kind of person she is besides parent. She had a trial she's a lawyer, obviously, and every 3 hours she came in checking the baby, taking his temperature, or he's not a baby, he's 6 now, but they're always babies, I guess, to us, but checking little Joseph and checking his fever every 3 hours. So anyway, that day, the next morning, she went to a trial. We took him to the to the doctors to be sure. And even though the baby had already been to the doctor, we took them all. And the doctors, they did a test for strep. Turns out Joseph had strep throat. So he's on antibiotic for that. The little girl's finished with her antibiotic. And matter of fact, Mara is the one who got the strep. The little girl, she got the strep throat. Little Joseph didn't. But anyway, they're all good now. They all got on whatever they had to get on, whatever the doctor prescribed. They're all good. They're all, thank God, healthy and running around, making noise, having fun, being spoiled by Grandpa. See, the good thing is when they're coming off of being sick, my daughter don't yell at me for spoiling them as much. She yells at me a lot for spoiling them. Like, Dad, do they have to get something every day? And, of course, yeah, they do. Or do they have to get 3 or 4 every day? Yeah, I guess maybe they do. But now she's not yelling at me about that, which is great. And we had a beautiful wedding over the weekend where we went to New Jersey, where I have an extended family, the O'Hares, through Jeff and of course, Jeff is my daughter's husband, my son-in-law. Through Jeff and my daughter, it's actually Jeff's brother Michael's family, his wife's family. Beautiful family, the O'Hares. So they got married. Two of the kids got married. Michael O'Hare got married to his longtime girlfriend Paige. They are now Mr. and Mrs. O'Hare. It was at a country club in Jersey, in Monroe somewhere. It was really nice. It was just a nice, beautiful night. Got to see my cousin. We joke around that we have connections to Ireland. My mom's maiden name is O'Reilly. Her mother's maiden name was Lawler. And he looked up the Rileys, not O'Reilly, Riley. He looked up the Rileys, and we feel we have a connection. We are cousins somewhere along the line. A lot of Irish cousins. So Jack O'Hare, I sat at his table with his family and me and my wife, and it was just it was a lovely evening, as they say. And we had a weekend of good UFC fights. And really, ESPN, the usual. I think the undercard was the usual where that they got their prospects, very good prospects, but, with a lot of amateur fights, and they're fighting undermanned opponents. They're fighting, opponents that are way, 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 way beneath their pay grade, way, way beneath their level of talent and experience as far as the amateur pedigree goes. Maybe not the pro, but the amateur. And they're blowouts for the most part. So I didn't really watch the undercard, but I'm sure that probably was, unless correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that was probably some of the case, if not all of it. But with all the coming home from the wedding, I stayed up to 5 a.m. to watch the fights, to watch some on tape. I got at 12 o'clock midnight, I got to watch the UFC fight. It came on late, so I got to watch that live. But the others, I watched tape till about 5 a.m. I didn't bother watching the undercard of ESPN. Like I said, I saw some clips. One of the future superstar talents that I've talked about in the past, what's his name?
Were you talking Abdullah Mason?
Yeah, Abdullah Mason.
Abdullah Mason. He's 14-0.
Oh, okay. He's that's the one I was talking about. He hasn't fought anyone yet, so I'm thinking about at a still a beginning level. But
yeah,
I mean, he's fought. I don't know who he fought on the last one, so maybe I should control my comments until I'm sure, because I'm sure somebody will say, "Oh no, he fought a guy better than that." But I know the fight before that, I watched it, and I was very impressed. It was the first time I watched him. I was very, very impressed. And he fought a guy, again, when I say without the experience, I don't mean pro experience. He may be fighting somebody with 20 pro fights or in that neighborhood, but they don't have that talent. They might have 20 pro fights, but they haven't fought anyone at the level of him with that kind of ability. And they're not only outmanned in the ability department, but also in the experience department, because even though they might have 14 pro fights and the opponent has, say, 30 or whatever, it doesn't matter. They have 200 amateur fights, and that trumps the 20 or 30 pro fights, because not only more fights and more experience, but the level of amateur, even though it was 3-round fights, the level of amateur competition that they've been in with already internationally is better than the level of pro fights that the opponent has been in. Much better. Not even close. So a lot of people don't understand that because you're not in the business. You don't know how to calibrate that. You don't know how to understand that. But that's a reality. But he's very, very impressive. Very impressive. I think his father trains him. But I don't know who else was on the card, if they were also, quickies. But
now the only one was the heavyweight. Guido Vianello stopped Makhmudov, the Canadian heavyweight. Vianello goes to 12-2-1. He looked pretty good against him. Outmanned. Makhmudov was a big guy, real big.
Yeah, not too long ago.
Guido did what you would expect. Yeah.
Not too long ago, Makhmudov was undefeated, maybe 2 fights ago, and was being touted as somebody. But then he got exposed. He got broken down by a guy I talked about before anybody. He put off a big upset win against Frank Sanchez in Saudi Arabia. I was there with my son ringside watching it. What's his name, the guy I'm talking about? It was 2 fights ago for the fighter that just lost. It was
2 fights ago, he lost to Ajit Kabayel.
Yeah, Kabayel. I touted Kabayel on this air after I saw him take him apart. And I was very impressed. And then I picked him to win against against Sanchez in Saudi Arabia, and he did. He stopped Sanchez in the later rounds. Good body work, everything, puts them together. He's smart, fights inside, outside. He's very aggressive but smart. And he didn't have a lot of amateurs, which really makes it even more impressive. But he's got what I think Kabayel has, what I think it takes. So it was, but since then, the big giant man who lost again, what's his name again? Who lost Saturday night on the undercard?
Makhmudov.
Yeah, Makhmudov.
Arslanbek Makhmudov, Russian.
He's been exposed. He's big guy, strong guy, but he's been exposed, and it was a really nice win. Really, really nice win for Guido.
Yes.
And a good fight. Back and forth for a little while, but the little bit I saw of it, it looked like it was some action there. And again, Guido did a good job. Pulled off a nice win for him. They thought they were going to get Makhmudov back on track, and he got knocked off track with this opponent. They thought it was the opponent to get him again back into a winning column, but they were wrong. So we go to the wherever you want to go. Where do you want to go? UFC? You want to go to kicks or punches?
Let's go UFC, and we'll work our way up from the undercard up to the main event. Let's start with Mateusz Gamrot losing a very close split decision to Dan Hooker. Great win for Dan Hooker. I just like seeing. I liked both of these guys, but I like seeing Dan Hooker get the win, stay on the winning track, so we get to see him again. Curious to see how Gamrot bounces back from this. But great fight, incredibly entertaining, start to finish. I thought. Everyone in the UFC is so tough. You just know you're going to get that. Hopefully the styles match up to give us the kind of action that these two gave us. But I love this fight, and Dan Hooker keeps the train rolling. Thought he would maybe get some momentum going for City Kickboxing Team, and handled business. How'd you like that fight?
It's never a mistake when the styles match up, and they match up more often in UFC than boxing. And I'll tell you why. You have a good matchmaker who is looking to make those kind of matches. It's not an accident. When styles really mesh to make a good fight, because a good matchmaker knows how to mesh those styles. A good matchmaker knows to never put a guy who runs, a guy who's all defense, a guy who's all movement, a guy who's just a ghost in the ring. They know enough never to put one of those guys in a match that's a headline match especially, that they want to get action out of. They understand that. And they're never going to put that guy in with a counterpuncher. They're going to put him in. If they put him in with anyone, they have to put him in because they're touting him, because he's signed to them. He's one of their top guys. They have to put him in with an aggressive guy. So, and then you hope for the best even with that. So it's not an accident when the styles are the right styles to make a good fight. And UFC has a good matchmaker that knows how to do that. I thought it was a very close fight. I was happy for Hooker.
Very.
It could have went the other way, I thought, easily. But
that's right.
I was happy for Hooker for the reason you said. The same reason my son Teddy said. This is a guy who's a warrior. What a fight with Poirier. One for the ages, that fight was. Took a lot out of both guys probably. But it took a lot out of Hooker. But what a fight that was. And he's always in great fights. He's always gives his all, which a lot of these guys do. He definitely does. He's just a warrior. He doesn't care who he fights. He got a tough deal when he had to fight his first fight in the UFC. Not Hooker's. Hooker was, of course, the veteran. But who am I thinking about who was supposed to fight the comeback fight recently that got put off again? With the superstar.
Dan Hooker. I got Mike Chandler.
Yeah, Chandler was, of course...
He got Chandler coming off the loss to Poirier. Welcome to the UFC.
Yeah,
Here's Poirier.
really.
Now when you're done with him, have Chandler.
Chandler, of course, was supposed to recently fight McGregor. And Chandler gets Hooker for Chandler's first fight in the UFC. And, of course, he blitzes Hooker and gets rid of Hooker. And I felt bad.
First round.
Yeah, I felt bad. Yep. Like Hooker got kind of, he got blitzed. It happens. He got blitzed. But he got put in there with a guy that was supposed to be a top talent. Turned out he is a top talent, even if Chandler hasn't won that many fights since, because he's only lost to the top guys, and every time it's a war, because that's what he does. He just comes to war. But I was very happy for Hooker, like my son Teddy was, because he is that guy who fight everybody, and he always gives you everything.
Interesting stat for Hooker. So he got Poirier, lost a very close, well, not too close, but he lost a unanimous decision. Tough fight. Then he got Chandler and got blitzed, like you said. Then he got a bounce-back win against Hakarast. And then he lost to Islam Makhachev. Then he got knocked out by Arnold Allen, and now he's run off 3 wins in a row. But, man, you see how very quickly 4 out of 5 fights lost. And but he's still a co-main at the UFC on a pay-per-view card, and that's the one nice thing about that's the nice thing about the UFC is you put on good fights a lot of times, win or lose. I mean, aside from your obvious desire to get the title, you still can be making money and getting paid if you show up and bring the heat every time. And Hooker's a perfect example of that, why people like the UFC and why the fighters, I think, like the UFC. 1 loss, 2 losses, 4 out of 5 losses, and he's still on the main card of a pay-per-view, huge pay-per-view event. It's just, you love to see it for guys like Hooker.
Yeah, and in boxing, it's a death sentence to get a loss sometimes.
Oh, 4 out of 5 losses, we'd never hear from the guy again.
But it goes to show you, it's not a negative in UFC, it's a positive. And I explain and define why I mean a positive. Because you learn, you improve, you get better, you prove that you belong at a certain level. First of all, to all the executives, to the fans, that you can fight at that level, and you improve. Sometimes it takes a loss to get better, to learn what you have to learn. And, a loss to win, you have to lose. And so they lose, they learn, they improve, they get fire forged, fire tested, and then they come back and they beat undefeated fighters.
Yep.
Because they become those guys. They become the guy that they could always be. They actually maximize their talent instead of, in some ways, diminishing it or never developing it sometimes in boxing, where they don't put them in with guys that they can develop with for their first 10, 15, 20, 25 fights. And then when they finally put them in, which that day is inevitable, you got to finally get in with someone, they're not ready. And sometimes they get destroyed and never come back. So it's better you learn younger, earlier, and you gain the confidence that even if you lose, you could depend on yourself at that level. And again, you know what to work on. You know what you have to correct, and you correct it. So Hooker is definitely one of those guys. The fight really, really a terrific, like you said, Ken, a terrific fight. Early on, I noticed, and my son noticed, Hooker used to just come right at you, and he still does. But just right at you, right in your face. He's tall, he's long. He never really bothered to really go and fight tall and long. And he has he's got that physical equipment to do that. I noticed a subtle change. Maybe it wasn't that subtle. Where in this fight, he did use those physical assets more. He did try to fight at a range more. I think it made a difference. He still was pressing a fight, but he was doing it behind the long arms, behind the jab. Getting some separation in a fight and some full length on some of his punches. Even though it was a big hook that he landed to drop Gamrot one time. But anyway, the first round, really good round. I'm trying to remember if it was the first round or the second round where you got the knockdowns. I think it was the first round. You got a...
I think so.
Yeah, first round, Gamrot drops Hooker. Hooker gets up, and then a little later, Hooker drops him. Look, with a nice shot. Hooker had the edge, although he defended takedowns beautifully, but he had the edge in striking. Gamrot had the edge on the floor, on the mat. And Gamrot was smart enough to look to get those takedowns, to stay away from the striking and mix it up a little bit, but not be all striking for Hooker. And he did that. And that's why it was a close fight. He did that. But Hooker also did well defending a lot of those takedowns. First round, really a close round. The second half of the round, I thought that Hooker did well. In the second half, I want to look at my notes. Hooker got up, dropped Gamrot with a left hook, and he dominated the second half of the round after Gamrot had controlled the first half. So right there, it's a toss-up round. I gave it to Hooker, so I had it 1-0. But like I said, very close round. But I had it 1-0. It could have easily went the other way. The second round, for me, Gamrot gets a takedown. Hooker, I made a note that obviously he needs to stay on his feet striking. Gamrot was controlling him on the mat. He was on top. Hooker got back up, did a good job recovering from the takedowns and avoiding a lot of them. It was like the first round where, again, Hooker goes back to pressing, doing the striking, but Gamrot got a takedown. Hooker actually got the better position on the top and landed some elbows, got up again. Hooker was striking again, landed some good shots and landed a really nice body shot in the second round. Just a rugged, grinding fight. Very close second round. Third round, so I had it probably, I probably had a 1-1.
All the judges had the second round in favor of Gamrot, and 2 of the 3 judges had Hooker up 10-9 in the first. So coming into the third, it was basically dead heat, and I thought it was pretty even too.
Yeah, I agree. That's how That's how I had. I had the first round close, but to Hooker, and then again the second round to Gamrot. Third round was going to decide it, like a lot of these fights, and just great round. The Warrior Hooker, they're both warriors, but man, Hooker's been around, and what a warrior. Not that Gamrot's not, but yeah, you got to love him. Good takedown defense shown again by Hooker. He was pushing Grant back with his striking. He landed some nice shots in the last minute. I thought that cemented the round for him. I believe anyway. I know it was a very close fight. You can make an argument the other way, but I thought that he cemented the round with his striking at the end in the third. I had it 2-1 for Hooker.
Yeah, that's all the judges saw, and then I'm looking at a website here, MMA Decisions, that has all the different media outlets who submitted a score. Just coincidentally, every single one of them had it 29-28 for Hooker, like 10 different media outlets, and one guy had it 30-27 for Hooker, which he's in the minority there. But yeah, it seems to be everyone agreed. Gamrot in the second, Hooker in the third. Consensus, and then how people interpreted the first. 2 of the 3 saw for Hooker. So,
and again, to what we both say about the UFC, Ken, and what you were elaborating on before about the records, another underdog wins. I mean, Another underdog wins. You don't get that many underdogs winning in boxing. I mean, not that many.
Never. Very rarely. Very.
Or
rarely.
If they do, when they get robbed. So anyway, I digress.
That's a good point. All right. That was congrats to our man Dan Hooker. Next up, City Kickboxing in action again. Kai Kara France in against the super game Steve Erceg also from Western Australia, where the fight was taking place. I love Steve Erceg. He looks like he could be managing an office somewhere in Midtown Manhattan. Just super even keeled, demeanor, calm. He looks like, God forbid you have words with this guy in a traffic dispute and get out of the car and he twists you into a pretzel and bangs you out. But Kai Kara France knocks him out. Awesome fight. How'd you like it?
You're 100% right. He's so, oh my God, he's so quiet and laid back and unassuming and all those words describe him. But if you wanted to use an alias, it would be Clark Kent.
Yes, exactly.
And
by the way, before you give the breakdown, Kai Kara France was a plus 240 underdog. Stevie Erceg was minus 300 coming into that fight. And on the other one, Hooker, just for reference, Hooker was plus 300. So plus 300 and then plus 240 on Kai Kara France. If you took the 2 underdogs there and... Actually, DDP was also a slight underdog as well. So all 3 underdogs in the last 3 fights won those fights.
Yeah.
Just an interesting stat.
Oh, it is. Listen, it speaks to what we're talking about. Why UFC has, grown. The brand has grown the way it's grown. The ratings have been the top ratings that they've been now, and they get top ratings, where boxing used to get the better ratings, no more. UFC on a regular basis gets the better rate. If it's a huge fight, if it's Beterbiev and Bivol, which we're going to get because of Turkey Al-Sheikh, if it's that fight, well, of course, boxing's going to surpass a lot of fights.
Well, we're going to get a big test coming up on September 14th.
Yeah,
we're going to get
Canelo.
the UFC in a mega event from the Sphere against Canelo. Now, granted, Canelo's not in his most competitive fight ever against Berlanga, but Canelo's the golden goose when it comes to ticket sales. The Mexicans come out in droves for him. So that'll be an interesting comparison. We'll get to that later, but just wanted to throw that out there.
No, you're right. And Berlanga's undefeated, so we don't know. It could be a competitive fight. You don't know if Canelo's going to get old.
That's fair.
Berlanga's talented. I don't know that Berlanga's ready for Canelo right now, to be honest. But you don't know. You don't know. On paper, undefeated kid with talent, confidence, and Canelo the veteran, you got to figure Canelo, but it could be very interesting. But like you said, you're going to get a chance to gauge again who's the king of the hill, who's the king of the mountain. You got Canelo, the king of pay-per-view, really. You got Canelo boxing up against a real good UFC card with the superstar O'Malley. You're going to get...
From the Sphere.
Yeah, at the Sphere, first time ever.
Serious bread into this. Yeah, they put huge money into that event.
Of course, Dana White, not Bob Arum, but Dana White will become the first guy to put a fight, a combat sport, a fight, in the Sphere, and which is what he wants to do. It'll be one and done because it cost him about $20 million to set it up to do it.
That's right.
So it'll be one and done, but it'll be done. And because Arum had talked about doing it, but you knew that wasn't going to happen, especially with that kind of price tag. Dana White not only has the deep pockets, I mean, obviously Arum's with ESPN, they got pockets too, but not only it's not just the deep pockets. You have to be willing to go into your deep pockets. Dana White is willing to go into those pockets to stay on top, to continue his brand being the top brand, to do whatever he has to do at different times, to keep his brand what it is on top. And he proves that. He proves it when there's a fallout.
Yep.
If there's a fight, if one of his main fights, or even undercard fights, a co-main, whatever, falls out for a big card, what does he do? He replaces sometimes with a name bigger than the original name. How does he do that? He goes to his pocket. That's how he does it. Boxing doesn't do that. But, he's not afraid to spend the money to keep the brand at its, to make sure the brand does not suffer when he has to do that. So, anyway, we did have a preview, though, Ken, as long as you touched on that, and you did it very properly. But as long as you touched on September 14th, we're going to get a head-to-head battle, if you will, of the network, so to speak, of the sports. Who's going to do better, UFC or boxing, on the numbers head-to-head, with O'Malley going head-to-head with Canelo. But we had a peak about 2 years ago.
It's funny you said that. I was just going to tell you. You remember the last time what happened?
Yeah, what happened? They had to back down.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, boxing had to back down because...
that was a bad look.
Yeah, it was a bad look because Canelo was fighting the same night. Somebody had warned them, say, why do you want to go... why do you want to go on the same night as UFC? But they went. They basically their answer would have been, I don't know if it was, but their answer would have been, we got Canelo, we got the Golden Goose, we got the Cash Cow, we got the Pay-Per-View King. We don't give a darn about UFC. They got to worry about us. Well, it turned out no. Canelo had to worry about them because when it came time. And they were going head to head. All of a sudden, what happens? the fans have to hear an announcement. There will be a delay. There will be maybe a 45-minute, I don't know if it was an hour. It might have been over an hour.
It was a crazy amount of time. Was he fighting? Was he fighting Kovalev?
I don't remember.
Or was it? I gotta look it up. But it was. You remember he was laying on the couch with his Mexican blanket thing.
There will be a delay.
It
came over the PA system. Ladies and gentlemen, there will be a delay in the fight. We're going to wait until the UFC goes and has their fight, their main fight, and then we will come on immediately afterwards. That was embarrassing.
When you're in the arena, Teddy, you know how it is. When you're in the arena in the co-main and now you're like, all right, main event coming up, and they're like, all right, get comfortable. We're going to do a 45-minute break. That is incredibly long time to sit around a crowded arena.
No, you're right, Ken. That was embarrassing. But here's the thing that makes you scratch your head, Ken. What do you think about, answer this for me if you can. Did they learn anything? I don't know. I guess not. Like, wouldn't you have thought, you're a businessman, if you had to do that, if you had to, concede the way they had to and step back and delay your broadcast for the UFC fight to go first that night, wouldn't you have learned something and maybe not done it again? Like, they're doing it again.
You would think so, and they told him that. The fight that they were up against, by the way, it was Kovalev, and they were up against the BMF belt with Nate Diaz and Masvidal, and Dana had said to the Zone, you'd have to be effing nuts to put this fight up against Diaz-Masvidal, but they did it anyway, and I think that, I think sometimes these promoters and these big sports personalities, and not to pick on Canelo, but I think they get sometimes so caught up in their own hype that they're like, nothing can beat me, and you're like an unbiased third-party observer is like, no, one's clearly like bigger than the other. Canelo is huge; he gets big numbers, but you had first, there was it in black and white. Here's the example. Go. And Canelo and DAZN had to back down if they wanted people to pay the money, tune in, and watch it live. Once it goes off, not many people are paying for the pay-per-view after the fact, so it would have kind of defeated the purpose if you didn't wait. And
they're doing
UFC
it again.
was like, we're going.
And they're doing it again.
Crazy.
They're doing it again. Wow.
And I don't think that Berlanga
they call me crazy.
They no offense to Berlanga, but Kovalev and Canelo, light heavy is a lot of drama there. But Berlanga, I just don't see him bringing the kind of hype that people are going to miss a UFC event to watch this live. I just can't see it.
I hear you, Ken. But he is young. He is undefeated. He is a talent. But I would not have chosen that date against UFC again if I was boxing.
I think that they probably think, what's it like, Mexican Independence Day? It's a big Mexican holiday,
right,
and they probably feel like, no, we have to go.
That's true.
Because, they're kind of in this like no-win situation. If they don't go, it looks like you're conceding.
No, I forgot. That's Cinco de Mayo, I guess, right? Is that right?
No, Cinco de Mayo.
No, that's May.
5th of May.
Yeah, that's May.
But I think it's Mexican Independence. Let me Google this.
Yeah, Cinco de Mayo is May, which Canelo always fights on, or usually fights on, which is smart and a great week for boxing.
Yeah, it's Mexican Independence Day, September 14th.
Okay, so they felt they needed to go.
Yeah, they had to. I think they probably felt like they couldn't avoid it because that had been talked about for a long time. And I think the UFC, I think that Canelo and Co. had the date previous to the UFC announcing it, because I know Dana's been trying to get it, but I could be wrong. I'll try and check the order of events, but I would imagine that's what happened.
Not only are you going, I take it back a little bit. I understand a little bit, but I still think you're gonna hurt yourself in the box office, because
definitely
at the end of the day, not only you're going up against UFC, the brand, O'Malley, superstar, but you're going up against the Spear the first ever event. And the spear is crazy from what I've been told. All the histrionics, all the, just all the electronic gizmos, all the lighting, the different kinds of stuff that they can put on the stage to make it just a crazy, sensational show. So I don't know. If I'm the guy laying the dollars down, if I'm the guy who's got to be doing the bean counting at the end of the night, I don't know. Mexican Independent Day or not, I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's also, it's not just UFC. This is the UFC event is sponsored by Riyadh Season and Sergiy Derevyanchenko, who's been beefing a little bit with Canelo and via the press. So I'm sure they're going to pull out all the stops now, given the heated exchanges that they've had recently, Canelo and Sergiy Derevyanchenko. So it'll be curious to see like how much they continue to pour into the promotion of this UFC event. Really uphill battle for Canelo.
And as much money as they make with Canelo, I have a funny feeling, not that it's going to involve this, but I would have a feeling that Sergiy Derevyanchenko could probably outspend them.
I think so. I just think when you see at that last event, when you see Eminem as the entertainment, I can't imagine that there would be anyone more expensive to hire to entertain for a few songs than Eminem. So clearly there's no...
what do you think they had to pay for that?
Constraints.
Fans love to hear numbers.
My guess would be several million. I mean, the friends that I know that are musicians that get paid to do these kind of gigs, it's big money. And I can't even imagine what all the expenses associated with that promotion. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But Eminem, I got to believe it's several $1 million just to even like think about a few songs. And he did basically like a mini concert. It's so crazy now even thinking back on it, how much promotional consideration was given to that event, just around the whole thing, the pomp and circumstance. Like you said, all the celebrities, like mainstream, Hollywood celebrities that you typically wouldn't see. I mean, look, there's a group of guys and girls that go to all the events, but not like what was at that Crawford fight. I've never seen anything like it. It looked like the damn Oscars. Everybody was there, including Teddy Atlas.
They sold out a soccer stadium. You don't get that too often unless you're in England.
Yep.
And Wembley and all that stuff, those fans. Speaking of everybody there, you just reminded me, Ken. I saw several people in the front row area, in the ringside area. I think they were working. I'm pretty sure they were working on the show. They were involved with the promotion, with the, logistics of the show. But I saw several of these shirts, our podcast shirts, being worn. Matter of fact, I didn't notice at first, and one of the guys yelled, "Hey, Teddy, like this shirt." And I was like, "Oh, wow. Yeah, that's cool. Thank you."
Nice.
Thank you.
That was BMO Stadium is where they held the fight. 22,000. So basically, it's similar to a big arena, but the soccer stadiums in England, I think, can get like a lot bigger. But still, that's 22,000 people outside in LA is a huge event. Well,
talk about huge. It was a huge upset again, pretty much, for Kara France against Erceg. And for me, look, the commentators are the best. DC, John Ennis, Dominic Cruz was there replacing Joe Rogan, who's, of course, great. For me, the thing that they told you, the commentators told you, Erceg was the favorite. He was better technically. He throws the straighter punches. He's technically more sophisticated. He's really a good striker, a good boxer. Uses the jab, keeps you at the end of it. Like I said, throws arrows. Nice, straight, correct kind of punches. Kara France not so much. He's more of the caveman type, a little bit, throwing the big punches, but he carries power. But he carries with the big hooks, the big wide shots a lot of the time. And the commentators made the point that he's a dangerous puncher. It came to fruition as the underdog, that the power did mean something. But what also means something, and I want to make this point because it played out in the main event with Izzy getting beat. And Izzy was a slight favorite, I think. But with the great Alessandra getting beat by Du Plessis, it played out there too. And what it is technique, flaws, good or bad, but technical mistakes. A technical mistake, it's so easy to get caught on the power, caught on the fact, and it's a fact, that it was Kara-France, his power that ended the fight, that pulled off the upset. But it's also a fact that's not as well looked at, that it was a technical mistake by the better technical fighter, quite frankly, the guy whose technique, straight punches, he's definitely looks more the box, he looks more the polished guy. There's no doubt. But he's got one mistake, and I made a note early in the fight. And he survived it 2 or 3 times until he didn't. He stepped straight back. I will not let a fighter in my control, in my guidance, in my care. If I'm training a fighter, I will jump in the ring during sparring if they go back more than 1 step. You got to go back 1 step if you go back at the right distance. And you got to pull a trap. You got to punch, you got to counter, you got to move your head, or you got to step to the side after that. You cannot go back straight 2, 3, 4 steps in a row. It's the same way you can't if you're on a railroad track and the train's coming at you. You can't outrun the train on the track, straight back. You got to get off the track, let the train go by. I made a note. Erceg went straight back 2, 3 steps. And Kara-France followed through. He missed. But Kara-France isn't going to keep missing. You give him another chance, he might not miss. And he only needs to hit once with that kind of power. Sure enough. Yeah, we saw the power. Yeah, that was celebrated. Yeah, that's the thing we talked about. But it was the mistake by Erceg of going back, bad habit, going back straight 2, 3 steps in a row that allowed the power to land, that gave a landing strip, like an airplane. You need a landing strip to land the plane. You need a landing strip to land a punch. And he gave him the landing strip. And sure enough, to his credit, Kara-France, he threw a right hand, you called wild, you called wide, whatever. It missed, but it was a nice setup punch, it turned out, because it got him close enough and it forced Erceg to take another step back. So he threw the right hand. It was a setup, it turned out. It made Erceg go back again, and then he stepped in with the left hook, and that one landed. And he had him right in his path because he went straight back. And then he got up, and then he followed him. He followed him then and landed another big right hand that was good night. Good night, sweet prince, somebody used to say. And that was the end of it. But it was all because of the habit of going straight. And the same thing played out later that night in the main event. Same thing. And Izzy was going back straight. And he got away with it. He got away with it until he didn't get away with it. Yeah, I know there were other things that Du Plessis, he's tremendous. They're both tremendous. I know there's other things Du Plessis did. I'm not denying that. And I'll get to that later. But it was that was ultimately his downfall. And it really doesn't get attention. It gets attention with a trainer, though, if a trainer really is a teacher, which a trainer should be, not just a guy who's a conditioner, but a teacher. It gets their attention, and it gets my attention all the time. All the time. I will not let a fighter get into the habit, even if they have great feet, even if they have great reflexes, because with the great feet, with the great reflexes, yeah, they're going to get away with it sometimes, but not all the time. And that's what I worry about. That's what I worry about. So, at the end of the day, congratulations, Kara France, 24-11. To your point, Ken, look at these records. You got one guy 24-11, and you got another guy 12-2. Who would you think is going to win? Most people would say, oh, it's a setup. It's a setup. 12-2 is getting himself a nice little appetizer before the main course down the road. But no, he gets indigestion. He doesn't get an appetizer. He gets his stomach upset. He throws up because you got a guy in Kara France who does have 11 losses and 1 no contest. But he's learned. He's been fire tested. He's become the real thing. He's not an opponent. He's a dangerous guy, period. And that's the way it should be in boxing. I remember going back probably the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, where Buster Drayton became junior middleweight champ. He had a bunch of losses. I'll name another one, Kelvin Seabrooks. I think he won the featherweight or bantamweight title, whatever it was, or maybe junior lightweight. Had a bunch of losses, won a world title, bunch of losses. They learned how to fight. Mike Weaver became heavyweight champ, had a whole bunch of losses. Had a good amount of losses. Again, fought Larry Holmes, fought a good fight. Larry Holmes was great. He's underrated. Larry Holmes winds up stopping him late in a fight. I think it was at the Garden. Winds up stopping him late in a fight with an uppercut. What does Weaver do? He comes back and fights Big John Tate, who's undefeated at the time, heavyweight champ, and he knocks him out in the 15th round. A real Rocky moment. Rocky, the movie Rocky. A real Rocky movie. I don't know if there's seconds left in the 15th. He's way behind, and he lands a left hook, and John Tate is out before he hits the floor. He falls face first like a tree. Just incredible. But again, Weaver had learned from those losses. He gained something from those losses. You know what he gained? He gained the opportunity to become a world champion in the future. That's what he gained. So, anyway, nice win for Kara France. Erceg, he's got to correct. He's a good striker. He is a good fighter all around. Well-rounded. But he's got to correct that mistake. If he corrects that mistake, even if he don't correct it, he'll get away with certain guys anyway. But he'll be right back. Point. He'll be right back.
Yep. Well, in the main event, DDP gets it done against Israel Adesanya. What a good fight. Super strategic chess match, as you would say. Chess with face punches. I thought it was awesome to watch them both strategically trying to figure each other out. When I would see DDP do those blitzes that he would do, I kept thinking, eventually he's going to get caught with these wild charges, but he kept getting away with it. And when he got that takedown after he hurt Izzy in whatever round it was, 3rd or 4th round when he finished him, the way he quickly jumped on his back, climbed up his back, locked the legs around him, and threw that choke in so fast, because he had him down earlier in the fight, but he couldn't do anything with Izzy on the ground. Izzy was too hard to hold down, but once he had him rattled, he jumped on him so quick. It reminds me of one of those National Geographic videos where the lion or the leopard pounces on the prey, and before you know it, they've got him in a death grip and choked him out. First time Izzy's been choked out. There's so much to discuss in this one. How'd you like it?
By the time the lion got to its prey, the way you described it there with Du Plessis, Adesanya, not that he's ever anyone's prey, but like happens in wildlife, you're tired out already, from combating, from, trying to starve off, getting in that position. You're already to a point, where you're a little bit more tired, which I think was part of it. And B, even though Du Plessis had looked like he was tired earlier, but always keeps going. Always gets it looks like he's out of gas, and then he's not out of gas. But he learned from the earlier attempts to get that chokehold, which Adesanya survived and escaped at least 2 times, I believe, earlier. But Du Plessis got the third shot at it, and this time he, I think a combination of Adesanya being a little worn out and Du Plessis making sure that he wasn't going to miss on this opportunity. But at the end of the day, the first thing I got to say about Du Plessis is that he's one of those enigmas. He's one of those guys, one of those rarities where the simple way, and the only way, an accurate way to put it, he's better than he looks.
That's a good point. Because I was thinking exactly that as I'm watching the fight. I'm like, it looks like DDP that Izzy should catch him. Izzy should beat him. Looking at the way they're both standing up, and that's the perfect description. He's better than he looks. The unorthodox style is hard to figure out.
There's nothing dynamic looking about what he does until he does it, until he gets the end result. Then it is. But up to then, it's very deceiving and misleading. He is the perfect example of that old saying, never judge a book by its cover. Because the cover does not necessarily is not necessarily indicative of what's inside the book. And perfect example here. He's physically strong. We know that. He's really big. Really big. He must have some weight crash, really, to when he makes weight, it can't be the easiest thing. Not for any of them, but really it's got to be a tougher one for him, I would think. He's so big, he's so physical, but he's better in technical areas and subtle areas than meets the eye. He really is. And there's one other quality that I think describes him. It's the simple quality. It's simple, but it's not that often you see it. It's not every day, no matter how much talent someone has, that they have this. And what he has is the same thing that Usyk has in boxing. An ability to win. An ability to win. A drive, determination. A lot of people have that. But he's got that plus an uncanny way to do and know how to win. It was a great fight. It was a great fight. I thought Adesanya looked good. He's 35 years old. He's not used up. But I thought after a year off, everything else, coming off a loss to Strickland, a year away, I thought that he was keeping range. He was looking to strike, is what he needed to do. Du Plessis was able, I thought Adesanya was doing good at range, using the jab, putting punches together, threw some beautiful body shots. I thought that he did really good striking in spots as Adesanya where he should. Keeping separation, as I said, putting punches together, using his jab. Du Plessis I don't know if it's fair to say not as good a striker. I think it is fair, but definitely not as finesseful, not as natural, not as polished a striker, but effective. And he finds a way to land telling punches, like punches that when he lands them, they mean something. And he landed a few. When they land, they jar you. They shake you. They send a message, physically and mentally. And he was able, periodically, through the rounds, to land those kind of shots so Izzy couldn't get the complete upper hand striking. So he couldn't dominate striking. And that allowed him to then be in the game the way he wanted to be, where he could then get him on the mat, which is where he knew he had the edge, and get him down to the floor, which at the end, Du Plessis, if he could do it, that's what he wanted to do. So I thought he did it with a nice mix. I also thought that there were close rounds. I had it. I know the judges had it 2-1 going into the fourth. The round that wound up being the last round. I could have had it 2-1 for Izzy. I know they had it 2-1 for Du Plessis, but I could see it because they were close rounds. I could, but I could see it for me 2-1 for Izzy. But always knowing that every minute, every second that there was still time was dangerous territory for Izzy, for both, but for Izzy because of the physicality, the power of Du Plessis striking and on the floor. Obviously, on the floor is where I said his big advantage was going to be. I thought that I mentioned it earlier. Yeah, you could talk about the submission, which ended the fight, but what got him to the submission? It was a punch that got him on the floor. Am I correct?
Correct.
What got him to the place where he could put his arm around Izzy and this time not miss the opportunity he missed a couple times earlier and complete the choke? What got him there? A strike got him there. What got him where he could land the strike? A habit by Izzy, who's a great athlete, who's one of the greatest middleweights UFC of all time, but a habit of going back straight. And Izzy gets away with it more than he don't because he's fast, he's got good legs, he's got good anticipation, he's got great reflexes. But now he's 35. And if you do that and you break the rules, for me, and you do what's wrong technically, and you go back straight, you're playing with fire. You're playing Russian roulette. Sooner or later, there's going to be a bullet in the chamber. And the same way as it was with Gamrot in the fight with Erceg, the same thing, where Erceg went back straight, Gamrot caught him. Izzy was going back straight, early rounds, getting away with it. But I'm sure that Du Plessis took note. I'm sure his corner took note. They said, you can catch him going back if you step quick enough. If you step quick enough, you can catch him going back because he's available. He's exposed when he goes back more than one. He gives you two. You don't give somebody 2-3 chances to do something bad to you. When you go back one, that's the only chance they get. You go back one, you go at the right distance. That's the right way to do it. You go back one, you get away with it, you counter, you set a trap, you move your head then, you go to the side. But if you go back again, now you're giving the guy a chance on the second. You're giving him a second and third chance to do what he couldn't do on the first one. And that's what Du Plessis took advantage of. Izzy was going back straight, and nobody, I bet you they still may not have noticed it. But because you notice the big stuff. You notice the physicality. You notice the submission. You notice the power of and the relentlessness of Du Plessis. You notice that. And you should notice that. But you should also notice the habit that allowed that powerful punches to land by going straight back 2 steps, 3 steps on a straight line. Anyway, just like early in the night was almost a precursor, a warning to what was going to happen if you looked at it that way. And sure enough, he gets caught. He winds up being submitted. I'm not negative on Izzy. I think he's great. He's 35. I think if he wants to come back, he still can beat. If he's ready on that given night, I think he can still beat top guys. But that's up to obviously what's inside of him, not just physically, but inside of him after all the accomplishments, after everything that he's done in his great career. That's something that he has to, he has to be sure that's there. That's there. The great Anderson Silva for the past. You see Izzy, who's great, when he was when he was dominating as the middleweight champ. You see O'Malley now as the champ. It's easy to see their greatness. It's easy to see why we get excited about them. It's not as easy to see it with Du Plessis, but he's got it. He's got it. And you're going to keep, I don't know, you're going to keep thinking that, this guy, you could do this with him, you could do that with him, until you get in there with him. And then you find out that, no, it ain't that easy to do this and do that with him. On a physical or technical level. This is a guy, I met him. I met him when he pulled off he had his coming out party. He pulled off that huge upset when he who was that against? Whitaker?
Du Plessis. He beat Whitaker. Was a huge upset. KO in the second round. Caught him, and I think he was a sizable underdog there.
Oh yeah, he was. Listen, that was his coming out party. Ken, I was there covering it for ESPN. When I was leaving the arena, he was in a van with his crew, with his guys, all nice guys. They were all. I find all the UFC guys for the most part to be really good, solid people. But anyway, he stops his van. I was walking with my son and a couple of the guys.
I think Rob and I were there with you too. Were you there? Not when you saw him, but I think we were at that fight in Vegas.
I think you were at that fight, yeah. And he gets out and he comes over and he says, Teddy, could I, and he was so, just a gentleman, so humble. He comes over because, could we take a picture? So, of course. And then we talked because, he wanted to hear what I thought. And so we talked. We had a nice conversation. I said, what impressed me was, it's obvious. First of all, I said, wow, you're huge. Wow, you're even bigger than you looked in a ring, and you look pretty big in an octagon. But you're really big. That's the first thing that catches your eye, how big and strong you are. And then he smiled. And then I said, but what caught my eye was how good you are. That you get caught up in how big you are, and you don't see and recognize how good you are and how technical you are in the ways that you are. And because of that, and I said this to him, I said, it's not going to be a one and done for you. It's not going to be one great upset and then off into the shadows maybe, or off into the, neverworld, or off into the horizon. No, because of that quality, because of what I believe I see, you're going to have a long career. You're going to be here for a while. And he smiled and he said, thank you. And his trainer came over, obviously a very good trainer. And he came over and he seconded what I said, He should. He's part of the reason why I said it. Obviously, somebody's helping him. Somebody's helping teach him. So that's there. That's there. And that was there again in this win against a legendary fighter now in Adesanya.
Let me just say one thing, Teddy. If you're watching the show, we'd love to have you on for a quick conversation one of these weeks. I think the fans would love to hear from him, and he's got a great personality, and big win for him. So let me just say that. If you're watching DDP, open invite, love to have a conversation with you on the show.
And for those that aren't sure or didn't watch it afterwards, aren't sure whether or not Izzy is retiring, because there's some thought that maybe he's going to retire now, with the great career and everything else. And he made it clear that he's not. And he made it clear with a quote. I don't know if anyone else caught this, but the quote was from The Wolf of Wall Street. You probably caught it.
Yeah,
of course. He says, and my son's going to love this, I'm not effing leaving. That's what he said. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not effing leaving.
I love that line. Such a good scene.
So he's not leaving. I'm glad he's not leaving.
Really nice guy. I'm sure he'll come back even stronger. 2 losses in a row. Like I said, first submission loss. But wish nothing but the best for him. And curious to see what looks like DDP is going to get Sean Strickland next. Just a question of where. That'll be a good rematch. I thought that... that was razor thin. That fight could have went either way, and I don't think anyone would have had a problem with that.
No, Ken. I think if my memory serves me, I might have had Du Plessis winning that fight by like one point. You know what I mean? Like whatever.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
But there was no argument either way. It was that close. I thought Du Plessis won it, but it was that close.
Similar to the Hooker fight with Gamrot, like that fight could have gone either way. One guy's decision, like you would say, what flavor do you like? You like vanilla or you like chocolate? Because it's just a matter of where you place the value on how the action played out. But super close, very competitive fight. And looking forward to see that one again. Certainly the promotion and the build-up will be entertaining, as Strickland always brings the entertainment. Let's jump into the Christian Mbilli and Derevyanchenko fight. Derevyanchenko continues to build his reputation as steady, old school, tough. If you're going to, I hate to label him the gatekeeper, but I'm afraid that's what he's becoming. But
he can't stay there too much longer.
Ever.
You can only take that kind of punishment. Right. He had a big amateur career too. You can only take that kind of punishment, Ken, so long. And he's at that point. Yeah. He's close to that place, close to that door. I don't know if his people recognize it, but he's close to that door. But I'll tell you, I'll leave it to you after this, and then you can finish up and bring me in. But for all the people that love to say I was, Teddy, you're wrong. But here's how I said it. At 3-1, getting 3-1, 3.5-1, whatever it was, I said that if Derevyanchenko had something left, if he had enough left, if he wasn't shot, and I'm not saying he's shot, but I said he could be shot. But if he's got enough left, if, you got to remember, I was one of the first people to highlight him, Billy, over a year ago when nobody knew who the hell he was. If they heard him Billy, they thought you were saying hillbilly. They didn't even know who he was. Now they all know.
No, that's true. You've been on him for a long time.
I labeled him. I touted him as a guy that's fun to watch, exciting, physical, and a guy that's going to be there, a guy to deal with, a force to deal with. But in this fight with my bookie and the odds, and we try to do something for the fans to give them something to think about, I said, if you're going to give me 3.5-1, I thought Mbilli, obviously was the favorite and most likely was going to have figured to get across the finish line. But I don't go back on it. But the way I said it, I said, if he's not done, if Derevyanchenko's not used up, he's got a shot to pull it off. Because Mbilli has flaws. He's aggressive. He has flaws with that aggressive style. And this is the best guy he's been in with. Although he's going in with a guy smaller, naturally smaller. Derevyanchenko's no super middleweight. And possibly used up. So I did quantify it that way. But I don't take it back. I said, 3-1, give it to me. I'd take him at 3-1. I'd take $100 bet, be ready to lose 100 to win 350 because I think that he's got a shot if he's not gone. But what I didn't count into the mix, and I'm not looking for a refund on my pick, but what I didn't count in there, all you people that love to come out and remind me of, when I'm wrong, fine. I did count on him maybe being a little used up. I did know that he was the smaller man, but I did not know that he was going to lose one arm after 3 rounds and be relegated to basically a one-arm fighter and lost the worst arm he could lose, the left. Because for an orthodox fighter, that's the one you jab with, you hook off, you uppercut, you go to the body with. You can win a fight with just one hand, with the left. But he's an orthodox fighter. He lost the left. He had to use the right hand the way you normally would use the left, which he's not used to using. I thought he might have been better served if he turned southpaw, where he could have then had that one good hand in the lead, where he could have jabbed with it, hooked off an uppercut. But he did a magnificent job. Magnificent. If this was the UFC, he'd get a bonus for his effort from Dana White. He did an incredible job, Derevyanchenko, surviving and winning spots. Winning spots. He won. I saw him win. He won. For me, I don't know if he won 1 or 2 rounds, but he won spots of rounds. And then the bigger guy would land a big right hand and, push him onto the ropes. Mbilli's credit. He's aggressive. He's relentless. He's physical. He imposes his physicality. He knows what his identity is. He don't hide it. He don't try to be, Pernell Whitaker 1 minute and Joe Frazier the next. No, he's Joe Frazier. And he comes... He tries to impose his will, his physicality on you, get inside. And to his credit, he went to the body too, not just head hunting, to the body of the smaller body. Makes sense. He did that, Mbilli. Did a good job with that. He could have used the jab more to press forward, I thought, but he did a good job with that. But Derevyanchenko stole the night for me. Because his courage, his character, he is the reason. If you out there wonder why the Ukraine has not been conquered by the greater, bigger, huger army of Russia, has not been conquered by them yet, through all this time, all you have to do, if you wonder that, is look at Derevyanchenko. Look at him. That is why the Ukraine people are still there fighting. That is why they are still in that war. They have not been conquered by Russia. That is why. Because they have other men with that kind of character on that side fighting. Derevyanchenko is a warrior in every way. And some of it is related, yes, to his culture. Yes, to his country. 100%. That is a hard, proud Ukrainian man. And I'm not saying you got to be Ukrainian to be hard and proud. I'm just talking about this particular guy. That was extraordinary that he survived that. I thought it should have been stopped, honestly. I thought the ref or the corner should have stopped it because the fighter ain't gonna. You got to protect a fighter like that from himself. The fighter ain't gonna. And I thought it was ridiculous that the trainer asked him, how do you feel? What is a warrior like that going to feel? If you went and asked some of those warriors on the battlefield that have been shot and their comrades are still out there and they've been shot and they're still going, and you go, how do you feel? Give me my gun is what they would say. Hey, do me a favor. This arm ain't working so good. Hey, can you hand me that gun with the other arm, please? That's how I feel. I feel like I could go back out there. How do I feel? What does that matter? What I'm going to do is what matters. What I'm here to do is what matters. So that I thought was ludicrous, crazy, to ask a fighter like that at that point, at that stage of the battle, how do you feel? How do you feel? You want to go on? What do you think they're going to say? What are you going to think they're going to say? Other than, are you nuts to even ask that? Are you nuts? You don't ask that if you're the trainer. You do. You don't ask. I never ask. I make up my mind. I see what I see. I hope I'm right. I think I'm right. I make a decision. I'm stopping the fight. I'm stopping the fight. I'm not asking, no, that's a trainer's responsibility. That's part of what you get paid for. That's part of what you train for. That's part of what you signed up for. That's part of what you're supposed to inherently, instinctually know. That you know if it's time to stop it. You don't ask him if he's a real fighter. He's going to give you that answer. Yeah, I'm ready. You make up your mind. You see with your eyes, your judgment, and you make a decision and you act on it. I thought that should have been done, but at the end of the day, great effort. Good job by Mbilli. Great effort by Derevyanchenko. I'm not trying to take anything away from Mbilli, but I will say this is what we learned. The heart and soul of a man that is that driven, that hardened, that trained, that ready, that committed, is something that, short of death, you're not stopping it. I mean, or something very, very, very serious. You're not stopping. That is a phenomenon in this universe, in our world. There's a lot of great forces out there, nuclear forces, all kinds of different energies. You got the electric car now. You got that battery. You got all kinds of, you got solar energy. You got all kinds of things. But there's nothing, I don't think, that compares to the force, the human force of a person that is committed to a mission with their heart and soul and everything God gave them, that is committed to that is trained for that. There's nothing greater than that force. There really isn't. I know that, you can watch Apollo, whatever, take off and you see the thrust of that engine. I mean, it really is incredible. It's a man-made power to see that thrust, that fuel get exploded and a spaceship go up in the air. It shows you how smart and how incredibly accomplished man can be to create such things. But this is a reminder that nothing and nobody creates anything stronger than God. Nothing. It's just a reminder. And God created that force within somebody that's there. And you don't see it that often. But when you do see it, you say, there's nothing greater. You say, wow. Derevyanchenko's close to the exit. Yeah, he's been in a lot of tough fights. Yeah, you got to think about the end of a career too. We found out, that I think walking out, from my eyes, Derevyanchenko's legs didn't look sturdy. That's me. That's just me. When he was walking out to the ring, I always think I can see that. I thought I saw his legs just didn't look the way they looked, obviously, a couple years ago. And obviously they look wobbly later in the fight, but he was getting hit, obviously. But what wasn't wobbly is with that force. What's inside him? So we saw that. We saw a guy who's been in a lot of fights. We saw the physicality of Mbilli. We saw the fun style, the exciting style of Mbilli. We saw that. The punch numbers, we saw that. But we also saw the mistakes and the flaws of Mbilli. That when you fight that guy, because there were spots there that, I don't know if you're on page with me, and you fans out there, but there were spots there that I said to myself, it would have been awfully interesting if Derevyanchenko, A, had 2 arms for the whole night. 2 arms. And B, if he was a little bigger and could punch a little more. It would have been awfully interesting. So I always look and say, not what's in front of me now only. I say, what's going to happen when Mbilli fights guys that are bigger, are better punchers, do have 2 arms, are real 168-pounders? What happens then when they hit him? Because he's there to be hit. Yeah, he's there to hit. Yeah, he's fun to watch. He's a barrel full of, fun to watch. No doubt about it. But when you fight that aggressive style, you're going to get hit. And exhibit A of my point, I love these guys. I love Pit Cruz. I love Mateusz. 2 aggressive guys that make their living with aggression, with physicality, with relentlessness. They've both lost lately, if you haven't noticed. They've both lost lately. Because at the end of the day, when you get to the top of the mountain, to stay at the top of the mountain, you need more. You need more than just that. You need more than just the physicality, just the toughness, just the aggression. You have to sprinkle in some stardust. You have to sprinkle in some other dust, some other qualities, some other ingredients. And those things have to be there with defense. Subtle things like feint once in a while instead of just walking in. Move to the side once in a while. I think Bam Bam Rodriguez, I think he might have those things sprinkled in. I love him. He's another guy, aggressive. But he mixes it up a little bit. He just won a title recently, not too long ago. I think he's a guy that might have some of that stuff sprinkled in, with it. But I don't see it with Mbilli right now. So that's what I took away. I took away, yeah, exciting. Yeah, aggressive. Yeah, we got a display of character and heart and all the things I just talked about with Derevyanchenko. But yeah, we also say another aggressive guy that depends on that. And you start to wonder, how long is that going to serve him? How long is he going to be able to eat at that table? How long? I don't know. I tell you one thing, I wouldn't put him near Morrell. I know Morrell didn't look great his last fight. I don't care. I know what he is. I wouldn't put him near Morrell right now in that division. I wouldn't put him near Canelo, quite frankly, although if they pay you enough, of course you're going to do that. I get it. I get it, because it's Canelo. He's going to give you more money than most other people to fight. You're going to get more money. I would stay away. I would stay away also, far away, really. And I'm not knocking him. I'm just pointing out what a trainer points out, I think, or should point out, if he's being honest and forthright and knows what he's watching. I would keep him away from Benavidez, from Morrell, Canelo.
That's for sure.
You know, those are the 168-pounders. I think it'd be very interesting to see him with Plant. My friend Pedro Martinez Fraga, who's watches this show, and is a very good. Well, he's a former fighter too, but he's a very good fight fan, and he knows what the hell he's watching and talking about. He brought that name up, Plant, to me, and also, you know, touched on the same thing I'm talking about right here. That I agree that I'd keep him away. And Billy, you can fall in love with him, fall in love with everything about him, a lot to fall in love with, but do not, while you're falling in love, do not make the mistake of seeing or not seeing the things where he does come up short. If you're his manager, if you're the guy that's in charge of his career, do see those things. Do not fall in love to the point where you're blinded and you don't see that. Notice that. Notice that, you know, there are some things there that can be a problem real fast. They can take away the excitement and the air out of the balloon real fast, really fast. So, yeah, I love him, Billy. 27, what's he, 28-0 now? 27, 28-0? I guess 28-0 now. Yeah.
Yep, 23 KOs.
Yeah, I love him. But I see where he comes up short. He got, you know, you can hit him on the way in. You can punch him between his wide punches. You can catch him with the uppercut. You could do what was it Valenzuela did against Pitbull a couple weeks ago in LA when I was
yep.
Where you know, you keep him on the outside, you catch him before he gets close. You know, you punch at a certain distance where you have the edge, where you can catch him before he gets into range where he can catch you. You have to be consistent. You have to be disciplined with it. And you have to have defense to mix in. When he closes, you got to get your head out of the way so he doesn't close and catch you standing there. Or you got to step to the side, turn him, or tie him up. But you have opportunities to catch him on the way in, punch him between shots. You know, again, keep a certain distance where you have that edge. You have to be able to make sure you get off with that edge at the right time before he closes. And you have a chance to hurt him. You have a chance to, you know, to outpoint him in the way that I described, but you have a chance to hurt him too, because he will be coming in, you know, into full force into you, and you will have an opportunity to catch him as he does that. Kind of like a baseball bat hitting a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Right over the fence. But Derevyanchenko, I just I hope you heard this. I hope you understand the admiration I have for you and what you showed. You made your country, you made yourself very proud.
Yep. Perfect summation. Well, that's a pretty thorough breakdown, Teddy. One thing I wanted to mention before we wrap is that as the summer winds down and people start to get back into the groove of work, one thing that's important to do is stay on top of your health and nutrition, and you can stay on top of your nutrition game by adding Athletic Greens. Go to athleticgreens.com/Atlas to take advantage of a special offer for listeners of this show. 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. Athletic Greens is the all-in-one green drink developed by several doctors using 75 whole food source ingredients to give you all the vitamins, nutrients, minerals, probiotics, prebiotics you need to maintain a healthy lifestyle, especially when you're traveling, which is why we asked specifically for the travel packs to be included with the Fight with Teddy Atlas promotion. So check out athleticgreens.com/Atlas to take advantage of the offer. 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. Teddy, that's a thorough breakdown of all the action from this past week, and I think we got a couple slow weeks coming up. So like I said earlier, maybe we can get a couple interviews mixed in here. But you got anything else before we say goodbye?
No, we're going to hold off the new part to the show. I talked about it last week, the mail room, where we read some of your comments. We're going to hold that off to next week. I think we're going to debut it. I think we're going to have a drum roll for it next week.
That's a good call, too, because it's a little bit slower next week. And we covered a lot today.
Yeah, I think that we're gonna do that. We'll bring out the mailroom, and
that'll give people too an opportunity. If you have questions you want answered on the show, submit them via Twitter. We see everything, and we'll work in the best questions.
I don't see everything, but I will find out about it. But
Bob and I see everything.
You see everything. I know that. That's I get it. I know that. That's I'm surprised your hair isn't getting grayer than like mine from hearing and seeing everything. But I will finish with this. You're talking about health. I know that a few of the things I saw because of my friend Pedro Martinez-Fraga, he took a snapshot. He cares about me. I'm fortunate to have family and friends, some real friends that actually do care about me. I'm blessed. And I hope everyone's blessed like that. And I saw a couple that they're worried about, talking about health. You got to, that you can't get better than that. Obviously, Athletic Greens. But there were people that were worried about my health. Yeah, I have asthma, okay? Just to get that clear, I have asthma and I have this. I have an inhaler that, quite frankly, I don't use it enough. Why? Because I'm a stubborn idiot. I don't like to use anything. I don't take things for pain. And I feel like I'm submitting by using this to help me breathe sometimes. But there's no doubt I tried to concentrate. I believe you can do everything through the mind. And look, there's some things you do need help. But even for this show, I concentrated. I tried to keep my episodes at a minimum as far as the breathing difficulty that I sometimes do suffer with. I do have this if I need it. Although, what good is it if I don't freaking use it, right? I mean, if you want to knock me for that you can send a comment in. Teddy, that you can send a comment. Sam's laughing. That would be a legitimate comment. Teddy, you got this thing and you don't freaking use it? Come on. But for those that were actually concerned, you actually touched my heart a little. That you actually were concerned if I was all right. I mean, we'll forget about the ones that hope I have a drastic asthma attack. We'll forget about those, the ones that would, love to see me have a dramatic asthma attack right on the air, live. But I got news for you. You wouldn't see it anyway. Because
exactly.
Because even in my death, I would edit it out. I would find a way to edit it out. But anyway, for those who are concerned, you are wrong. There is a situation. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm blessed. I got family. I got good people around me. I got you fans that care about me. Thank you. All of you. Take care of your family. Take care of yourselves. And see you next week.
All right, guys. See you later. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week and we'll answer some of the questions. Take it easy.